Hi everybody, it's Joe and it's a channel update, monthly Patreon Q&A time. And man, update wise, really isn't much to say. I really wanted to talk about getting a new camera because I did buy a new camera, and it turns out that the new camera that I bought is really not suited to video production at all, which is totally my fault. I misread / misinterpreted a couple of things that I had read about different cameras and different models and specifics about whatever. And yeah, I bought a camera that basically is for taking photographs, which is great, but not something that I needed to spend as much money as I spent on it to take photographs. So still using the old camera. Yeah, it's not up quite yet, but the thing I did for Brazzle the Gamer's channel, I believe should be going up pretty soon, and I'll, put out links to that when that happens. Yeah, it's summer. It's summer in DC, which means it's usually sweltering. Today it's actually really nice out. I'm going to finish this up and go lay by the pool and do some reading. But yeah, I mean, really not much to say. If you haven't checked out the stream I did of the Bloodstained Kickstarter beta, you can check that out. That just went up pretty recently. Streams on Wednesdays. Capcom Chronology is still trucking along. That's about it. So let's go right to the Q&A. All of this month's questions come from Joel, which is often the case. And the first one is, which videos ended up taking far longer than you thought they would? The biggest one of those, well, so this one, I had to recapture a whole game's worth of footage, not this Q&A, but the one I'm working on right now, which is UN Squadron. I had to recapture all of the arcade footage because the way that MAME recorded it was not usable, so I had to re-record it. And the camera thing, I set up the new camera that I just mentioned to set this up, and then realized it wasn't going to work for a handful of reasons. I rewrote the script. Yeah, this one has been, but the biggest one I would say was Mortal Kombat 2. I recorded and dumped the footage on my old computer, and it was one of the first games that I was able to capture in really high quality because I was capturing it right from my PlayStation 3, and it bogged the whole system down, and I could, to the point where you couldn't do anything, and I couldn't figure out what exactly it was. I thought it was the length of the clips, and then I shortened them and it was still happening, so I was like, maybe it's not, and then I ended up shortening them more and more. On the old computer, it really needed to be 15 to 20 minute clips. Anything longer than that would bog the system down in HD. So, but that made the Mortal Kombat 2 video take twice as long as it should have. Any canceled games you wish had come out? Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, I would say, probably. It would be cool if Titan Warriors had come out, which I assume the inspiration was the Titan Warriors video that I posted not that long ago. Holy Diver, which I guess now is coming out, is finally coming out in the US, but, that was rumored to be getting a US release. Most of them, honestly. I think some games get canceled because they're bad, and a lot of them get canceled for other reasons. There's a game called Time Diver Eon Man for the NES that I think is pretty fun. That would have been cool to come out. There's probably games that never saw the light of day, period, that I would be interested to see what they were, but it's hard to say. I wish a game came out and it turns out that game could have been trash. There was a Contra for 3DS that was announced right when the 3DS launched. There was a Contra game, and all they showed was a logo. That was it. It was just like the Contra logo. It wasn't anything special. And obviously, at some point, it was canceled. And then I heard sort of through the grapevine that the reason it was canceled is because it was trash. So I could say oh, I really wish that 3DS Contra had come out, but supposedly it sucked, so why would I want it to come out, you know? So in a, I guess, related question, are there any games you'd like to see translated? You know, the fan community has been really great about getting so many things translated. If you go to romhacking.net, there are translations for just, I mean, an unreal number of games. But in terms of stuff that I would like to see get a translation that hasn't already, I mean, Policenauts was the big one. It's a CD-based game. What's the chances that anyone's ever going to figure out or put in the work to translate this? And there's a ton of voice work, and people did it, and it took years to get Policenauts translated. So that was really like the big one for me, was, you know, wanting to see Policenauts get translated. But now it's happened. So I'm not really sure that there is much else left out there that hasn't been translated. I'm even struggling to think of something that you know, that I know of that doesn't already have a translation patch of some sort, and I am really struggling. I can't think of anything after Policenauts that remained untranslated that I was like, I mean, it would be cool if someone translated the later versions of Snatcher. I don't think the PlayStation and Saturn versions of Snatcher have been translated, and that would be cool just to check out what they're like on those systems. Although a lot of people say that even people who've played those Japanese versions say that the Sega CD version is still the definitive version. It's also, I believe, the only version that's light gun compatible. So, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe not. There's really not much else out there, or anything else that I would say like, oh, it would be cool if such and such was translated, but it's like, most of the games I'm into are action games, so the text is usually not something where I'm like, oh, I really needed that text. Favorite less prominent developers and publishers? This is a question I can definitely sink my teeth into. I don't know if SNK counts as less prominent. Some of the examples are like Technos. Technos is absolutely one of my favorite developers and publishers of all time. They did WWF Superstars, WWF WrestleFest, the Kunio series, the Double Dragon games. I mean, you know, Technos did, and so when talking about the Kunio games, you know, again, if you're an American, they're not all really part of the same series. Talking about Super Dodgeball, talking about River City Ransom, talking about Nintendo World Cup Soccer, like all those are part of the same series, and they were all done by the same developer. They did Super Spike V-Ball, they did, I mean, Technos just did so many awesome games in the 8 and 16-bit era. They did the Neo Geo version of Super Dodgeball, which is such a weird and different thing than the NES version or the arcade version. That was one of their last games. They did the weird Double Dragon fighting game even for the Neo Geo as well. So they just did so much weird, quirky, but still fun and unique stuff that Technos is probably, you know, towards the top of that list, if not at the very top of that list. Natsume did some stuff before Natsume became the Harvest Moon Company, which is a series of games I'm not really into. But Natsume put out some stuff that, you know, I thought was really great during the 8 and 16-bit eras. As did Sammy, which, you know, it's weird that they're now, you know, like the kind of the parent company of like Sega and Atlas, and they're so huge, and you wouldn't even really think of them that way. But back in the day, they definitely published in the United States some games that were really fun, stuff like Ninja Crusaders and Vice Project Doom, and, you know, neither of which they developed, but, you know, that's still pretty cool stuff that they made available here in the United States. Oh, you know what? A big one for me is Naxit Soft, which the U.S. branch was called Taxon, and they put out, they published in the U.S. like Mappyland, because Namco wasn't publishing games in the U.S. at the time, and the first G.I. Joe game on the NES, which is better than the second one, and Low G-Man, which is pretty fun. So they did some stuff, but also in Japan and on the PC Engine especially, they ported and published some of Technos' arcade games, stuff like Super Dodgeball, I believe, was published by them on the PC Engine and stuff like that. So that's actually one of the way less remembered publishers and developers of that era is Naxit / Taxon, which is Naxit spelled backwards, if you didn't pick up on that. So they're up there too, but I think Technos is probably, to me, the king of the B tier developers, publishers. I'm still waiting on that Kunio collection that's supposedly coming for like Steam, Switch, PS4, whatever that's supposed to be coming. That's going to have all the US and Japan versions of all the Kunio NES games on it, which is like 15 games or something like that, which is really cool. Oh, you know what? That's a game that I wish had come out that never came out. Crash and the Boys Ice Challenge, which was the American localization of this game, Ike Neketsu Hockey, which is the Kunio hockey game. And yeah, this almost got a US release. After Crash and the Boys Street Challenge, they were going to do Crash and the Boys Ice Challenge. Basically, Technos was going to start doing the Kunio series as Crash Kunio Crash Kuni. Get it? It never saw the light of day. And I don't know if actually an official ROM of that has ever been found or dumped. There's a translation patch for that, but I don't know if the whole thing has been put out. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to ask a question like this, it's $3 per video on Patreon. That's patreon.com/same name different game. And I'll talk to you next month.